I was picking trash off the frozen sidewalk on Christmas Eve when I realized something was deeply wrong with my life. Not because it was cold, not because my fingers were numb inside my gloves, but because, in a town glowing with Christmas lights and laughter, this was exactly where I expected to be. Before I begin, if you're listening to this during the holiday season, I hope you are safe, warm, and surrounded by people who truly see you. I wish you a peaceful Christmas, a gentle heart, and moments that remind you that you matter. I didn't have that luxury, so let me tell you how my Christmas really began. My name is Arden Vale. I'm 31 years old, a data architect living in Coldwater, Montana, where winter arrives early and stays like it has nowhere else to go. By Christmas Eve, the town looks like a postcard. Snow blankets the streets, storefronts glow amber behind fogged glass. Wreaths hang perfectly centered on red doors. Every house looks like it belongs to someone, except me. That night, while families gathered around fireplaces and Christmas trees, I stood outside St. Rowan's Church, wearing a volunteer jacket 2 sizes too big, holding a metal trash grabber that burned my palm with cold every time I squeezed it. The sidewalk was slick with ice and crushed pine needles. A broken ornament glittered near the curb like a tiny crime scene. Inside the church, I could hear the choir rehearsing for midnight mass. Their voices rose and fell, warm and clean. Someone opened the side door for a moment, and the smell of fresh pine, melted candle wax, and gingerbread spilled into the night. It felt like the building itself was breathing warmth, just not for me. I wasn't there because I had nowhere else to go. I was there because going home meant pretending I belonged. Christmas in the Vale family had always been a carefully staged production, and I was never cast in a leading role. That role belonged to my younger sister, Elowen. Elowen with the effortless smile. Elowen with the stories everyone wanted to hear. Elowen who could walk into a room and make it tilt toward her. I learned early that Christmas wasn't about who was present. It was about who was noticed. One year, when I was 12, I asked if we could open presents together before dinner. My mother said, "In a minute, Arden." That minute never came. Elowen had a new song she wanted to perform. By the time the applause faded, my gifts were pushed aside, still wrapped, like props that missed their cue. So yes, I volunteered for the Christmas Eve cleanup shift on purpose. No one questions you when you say you're helping the community. It's the safest excuse for absence there is. I bent down to grab a crumpled red napkin near the church steps when my phone vibrated. I didn't need to look to know who it was. A message from my mother. "Change of plans. Dinner moved earlier. Allowance exhausted. We'll do gifts another day. Love you." Another Christmas, neatly postponed. Another invitation that wasn't really meant for me. I slid the phone back into my pocket without replying. Silence had become my most reliable survival skill. The cold deepened. Snow began to fall again, soft and relentless. I focused on the mechanics of the grabber. Open, close, release. Because patterns made sense. Patterns didn't lie. At work, I built systems that found hidden fraud by noticing what others ignored. In my life, I noticed the same thing. I was always optional. I straightened up just as a low hum cut through the quiet street. At first, I thought it was a snowplow. Then I saw the headlights. Too smooth, too deliberate. A black limousine rolled slowly down the block and stopped directly in front of the church. It didn't belong there. It looked wrong against the snow, like a tear in the night. The choir inside kept singing, unaware. The street went still. I stood frozen, trash bag hanging from one hand, metal grabber in the other, feeling suddenly exposed, as if every choice I'd ever made had led me to be standing right there, at that exact moment. The driver stepped out first, crisp and silent, then opened the rear door. A man emerged slowly, wearing a long dark coat, his white hair stark against the Christmas lights overhead. He didn't look around. He didn't hesitate. His eyes locked onto me with unsettling precision. And then he said my name. Arden Vale. Not a question, a confirmation. In that instant, standing outside a church on Christmas Eve, with snow on my shoulders and carols echoing behind me, I understood something terrifying and irreversible. This Christmas was not going to be quiet. The man didn't rush toward me. He didn't smile. He simply stood there beneath the Christmas lights, snow settling on his coat, as if time itself had slowed down to make room for him. I remember tightening my grip on the metal grabber, my instincts screaming that I should step back. People don't arrive in black limousines on Christmas Eve. unless they belong to a world that doesn't brush up against yours by accident. He said my name again, quieter this time. Arden. No one ever used my full name unless they were correcting me or reading it off a form. Hearing it spoken with certainty, like a fact, not a question, sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cold. I think you have the wrong person, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. The man shook his head once. Snow fell from the brim of his hat. I don't. He stepped closer, the crunch of snow beneath his shoes impossibly loud. Up close, I could see his face clearly, lined, controlled, the kind of face that had learned long ago not to reveal regret, even when it lived there permanently. My name is Silas Hawthorne, he said, and I've been looking for you for a very long time. I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it, sharp and brittle. You picked a strange night for it. Yes, he replied calmly. That was intentional. The church bells rang behind us, marking the hour. Midnight was close. Christmas was officially arriving, and I was standing outside with a stranger who spoke like he'd rehearsed every word. I don't have money to give, I said, and I'm not here to take anything from you, Silas interrupted. I'm here because I already took something, years ago, and I never returned it. I stared at him, my breath fogging the air between us. You should probably say what you mean before I call someone. He nodded, as if I'd passed a test. Then he said the sentence that cracked the ground beneath my feet. I'm your grandfather. The world didn't explode. It narrowed. I heard the choir stop singing inside the church. I noticed the way one string of lights flickered above us. I became acutely aware of the trash bag at my feet, half full, ridiculous in the moment. That's not funny, I said. I know, Silas replied. I never joke about blood. I wanted to deny it, to walk away, to dismiss him as another delusional man drawn to the church on Christmas Eve. But something in his voice refused to let the lie settle comfortably. My mother doesn't have a father, I said, not one she talks about. That's because she erased me, he said, and I let her. The words landed heavy. Silas explained slowly, deliberately, as if he knew my mind would reject anything rushed. He spoke of a break decades ago, of choices made in anger and pride, of wealth tied to responsibility, and responsibility mistaken for control. I thought disappearing was an act of mercy, he said. I believed that if I stepped away, she could build a life untouched by my shadow. And instead, I said quietly, she built one with a hole in it. Silas met my eyes. For the first time, something in his composure faltered. Yes. The snow thickened around us. I realized my hands were shaking. Not from cold. This time I knew the difference. All these years, I said, you just stayed gone? I stayed watching, he corrected, from a distance. And when I saw what they were doing to you, I understood that silence had become cruelty. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal card. It caught the streetlight, cold and unadorned, except for a single engraved line. For the one who dares to stand. He placed it in my palm. The metal burned like ice. You built something extraordinary, Silas said. Oracle grid. A system precise enough to see lies people spend millions hiding. My heart slammed against my ribs. How do you know about that? Because the people stealing it are very loud, he replied, and very careless. The night suddenly felt too small. They are preparing to profit from your work, he continued. They believe Christmas goodwill will soften scrutiny. It always does. I thought of Palisade systems dressed in red ribbons, of executives smiling over champagne, of my name quietly removed from the narrative. I can help you stop it, Silas said, but only if you understand this won't be comfortable. I swallowed. What's the catch? He didn't hesitate. No settlements, no quiet payouts, no wrapping the truth in pretty paper so everyone can keep smiling. The church doors opened briefly behind us. Laughter spilled out. Warmth. Belonging. Silas watched my face carefully. Christmas is when people talk about forgiveness, he said, but it's also when truth is born into the open. I looked down at the metal card, then back at him. For the first time that night, I wasn't invisible. And for the first time in my life, someone wasn't offering me comfort. They were offering me confrontation. Snow fell harder as Christmas drew closer, thick and silent, the kind that makes the world look clean, even when it isn't. Inside the Palisade Systems office, everything glittered. wreaths on glass walls, red ribbons wrapped around metal railings, a synthetic pine scent pumped through the vents to make us feel generous, forgiving, distracted. That was the point. People think lies hide best in darkness. They're wrong. Lies hide best in celebration. I moved through the office like I always did. Quiet, precise, invisible when I needed to be. My access badge still worked. My desk still sat in the same place. Noah still kissed my cheek every morning, as if nothing had shifted between us, as if I hadn't already stepped out of the life we pretended to share. He was under pressure. I could see it in the way he checked his phone every few minutes, the way his laughter came half a beat too late. End-of-year performance reviews, investor expectations, Harlan's constant reminders that this demo would define the company's future. And Noah wanted to be indispensable. That's why I built Ren. Not loudly, not dramatically. I designed it the way you design a bell, silent until touched the wrong way. Ren wasn't sabotage. It didn't damage anything. It didn't interfere. It simply remembered. It logged authorship, access paths, timestamps, and intent. A clean signature hidden beneath elegant code. I didn't hide it from Noah. I let it sit where curiosity would trip over it. A file name that suggested optimization. A comment that hinted at unused potential. I knew him well enough to know he'd look. I also knew he'd tell Harlan. "You've been working late," Noah said one evening, leaning against my doorway, pretending to be casual. "So have you," I replied. He glanced at my screen. Too long. "What's that module you're testing?" "Nothing production ready," I said. "Just something I didn't finish." That was all it took. The days blurred together after that. Christmas music looped endlessly. Someone brought in cookies shaped like snowflakes. Harlan walked the floor with false warmth, calling the upcoming demo our gift to the market. The night before the presentation, Noah didn't come home. I didn't ask where he was. The demo day arrived wrapped in confidence. Investors logged in from Europe and the East Coast. The board gathered in the glass conference room, reflections layered over one another, like lies stacked neatly. I wasn't invited to present. I sat at my desk instead, hands folded, heart steady. This wasn't anger anymore. This was execution. When Harlan began speaking, his voice carried the rehearsed optimism of someone who believed the ending was already written. Noah stood beside him, proud and polished, introducing features I recognized down to the indentation style. Then they activated Warren. It happened quietly. No alarms, no dramatic interruption, just a brief pause in the system's output, less than a second, before a new panel appeared on the internal monitor. Authorship verification. Active. I felt it before I saw it. The room shifted. The air changed. "What's that?" someone asked. Harlan frowned. Noah's smile froze. Lines of data populated the screen, clean and undeniable. Timestamps, access logs, development history. My name appeared once. Then again. And again. Not loudly, not defensively, just fact. The holiday music in the hallway kept playing. "This must be a glitch," Harlan said quickly. Noah didn't speak. His eyes searched the room, then found me through the glass wall. For a moment, I saw it clearly. The exact second he realized what he had taken wasn't free. An investor muted his microphone. Another leaned forward. Someone in compliance began typing furiously. "Pause the demo," a voice said. The feed cut. Phones lit up across the room. Whispers replaced celebration. The wreath on the conference table looked suddenly obscene. Within minutes, the words suspended moved through the building like cold air. The contract. The demo. The future they'd wrapped in ribbon. Harlan turned pale. Noah didn't look at me again. Outside, snow continued to fall, soft and relentless, covering the streets in white. From my seat, I watched the reflections of Christmas lights flicker across the glass walls as people scrambled to contain something that refused to be contained. For the first time, the lies didn't melt away quietly. They froze in place, and everyone could see them. The church looked different that night. Not richer, not grander. Just honest. The long tables stretched down the center aisle of St. Rowan, bare wood softened by white tablecloths and flickering candles. There were no name cards, no assigned seats. A man in a worn coat sat beside a woman in a tailored blazer. Volunteers moved quietly between them, pouring coffee, passing bread, offering smiles that didn't ask questions. Snow pressed gently against the stained glass windows. blurring the colors into something almost tender. Outside, the town glowed with Christmas lights. Inside, the air carried the low hum of voices, cautious at first, like everyone understood they had entered a space where pretending wouldn't last long. This was the open Christmas table. No hierarchy, no invitations, no performance. I stood near the side aisle, hands folded, feeling my pulse in my throat. The events at Palisade had cracked something open, but this was different. This wasn't corporate fallout. This was public truth. Then I felt it before I saw him. Silas Hawthorne had entered the church. He didn't announce himself. He didn't seek attention. He walked slowly, leaning on his cane, snow still clinging to the hem of his coat. Conversations softened as people noticed him, some recognizing the face they'd seen in headlines decades ago, others sensing instinctively that this man carried weight. He stopped near the altar. Someone handed him a microphone. For a brief moment, I thought he might speak, that he would claim the room, explain himself, frame the night the way powerful men always do. Instead, he turned and looked directly at me. "Arden," he said, his voice steady, amplified just enough. "It's your turn." The microphone was suddenly in my hands. I felt every eye in the room land on me. The journalists at the back raised their phones. The volunteers froze. The candles flickered harder, as if the building itself had inhaled. I stepped forward. "I didn't come here to accuse anyone," I said, surprised by how clear my voice sounded. "And I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness." A murmur moved through the room. "I came here because Christmas is the one night people tell the truth and hope it doesn't cost them anything. Tonight, it might." The screen behind me lit up. Not flashy, not aggressive, just data, timelines, authorship logs, clean, indisputable proof. The technical evidence glowed quietly under the Christmas lights, refusing to dress itself up for the occasion. You could feel the shift when people understood what they were looking at. "This isn't about revenge," I continued. "It's about being erased and deciding not to disappear quietly." Someone near the front whispered my name. Then I heard it, a chair scraping softly against the stone floor. I turned. Elena was standing. She hadn't planned to speak. I could tell by the way her hands trembled, by how she avoided looking at me at first. My sister, always so composed, suddenly looked younger, smaller. "There's something else," she said, her voice barely steady enough to carry. "Something you don't know." The room stilled completely. She looked at Silas, then at me. "Our mother didn't just cut him off," Elena said. "She destroyed his letters. Every Christmas. Every year." A breath caught somewhere behind me. "She burned them," Elena went on, tears spilling now, "because she thought if Arden knew someone was waiting for her, I wouldn't be enough." The words landed like ash. I felt my knees weaken. All those years, all those winters, all those empty nights I'd convinced myself were normal. Silas closed his eyes. "I knew she hated me," he said quietly. "I didn't know she punished you." Elena turned to me then, really looked at me. "I was afraid," she said, "and I chose myself." No one spoke. Even the candles seemed to hold still. Somewhere in the distance, the church bells began to ring, slow and deliberate, marking midnight. Christmas had arrived, not with songs, not with gifts, but with a kind of silence that only follows truth. I took a breath. "There's no manger here tonight," I said softly. "No perfect story. Just people sitting at the same table, seeing each other clearly for the first time." Snow continued to fall outside. Inside, something finally broke open. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't standing outside the warmth, looking in. I was already at the table. The snow didn't stop when everything else finally did. It fell softly, steadily, as if the night itself had decided to stay. After the candles were blown out and the last murmurs faded, the decision was made without drama, without applause. Oracle Grid would not belong to a corporation. It would not be wrapped in contracts or guarded by boardrooms. It would be placed into a community technology trust, dedicated to rural clinics, underfunded hospitals, and people whose lives were often treated as invisible data points. No speeches, no victory laps, just quiet agreement. That, to me, felt like the most honest kind of Christmas miracle. Silas stood beside me near the altar after most people had left. The journalists were gone. The volunteers were stacking chairs. The church felt larger now, emptier, like a place that had finally exhaled. "I won't run it," he said simply. I looked at him. "I didn't ask you to." He nodded, relieved. "Good, because it shouldn't be run by someone trying to make up for the past." He handed me a slim folder. Not legal threats, not control, just access, responsibility. "I'm not giving you power," Silas said. "I'm recognizing the fact that you already earned it." I had waited my whole life for someone to say something like that, and somehow, hearing it now didn't make me feel smaller or dependent. It made me feel steady. Later, outside the church, the air was quieter. Snow coated the steps, the railings, the small sign that read, "All are welcome," words that had never quite applied to me before. I picked up the trash grabber again. The metal didn't sting this time. A volunteer laughed softly nearby. Someone was humming a carol under their breath. The Christmas lights along the fence flickered once, then held. I caught my reflection in the glass door. Same coat, same boots, same tired eyes. But something fundamental had shifted. For years, I thought survival meant leaving first, keeping my head down, making myself useful but never inconvenient. I believed the safest place was the edge of the room, close enough to observe, far enough not to be chosen. Tonight, I understood the lie I had been living inside. The empty chair was never proof that I wasn't wanted. It was proof that I had been waiting for permission that never existed. I didn't need to disappear to protect myself. I needed to stay. I looked back at the long tables inside the church. No one had assigned seats. No one ever had. I could sit wherever I chose. I always could. This Christmas wasn't about reconciliation wrapped in tinsel or pain erased by song. It was about something quieter and stronger. It was about presence. I stayed until the last light was turned off, until the snow muffled the sound of the town, until the night felt complete. If you've listened to this story from the beginning to the end, I want to say this to you. Wherever you are tonight, whether you're surrounded by people or sitting alone with your thoughts, you are allowed to stay. You don't have to earn your place by being smaller. You don't have to disappear to be safe. I wish you a peaceful Christmas. A warm one. A Christmas where you choose your seat and keep it. And if you'd like to hear more stories from other women who found their voices, their boundaries, and their strength, please like this story and subscribe to the channel. There are many more waiting to be told. Merry Christmas.